Welcome to M&G Agency Life, your regular dose of creativity, insights, and all things Mearns & Gill.
Join us on this whirlwind journey through the world of marketing, design, and digital.
We'll also talk brand, events, media, and lots more.
Like what happens behind the scenes?
Yeah, and the latest industry trends, we've got you covered.
So get ready to dive into the world of agency.
Right, shall we do this?
Oh, heck yes. Hello and welcome to episode 7 of M&G Agency Life, the power of public relations. Pete, what are you doing with that ball of Mr. Sheen?
Well, Amy, it's all about our guest. Today's guest is a little bit of a tidy freak.
Okay.
One time I got in trouble because I left a cup that was dirty on the kitchen sink. So I just wanted to have a little bit of a panic clean here in the podcast room. As you said, today's episode is the power of public relations. If you don't tell your story, someone else will. I thought I'd start with a quote. Today's special guest is Sarah Bremner.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Extraordinaire. Hi, Sarah.
Thanks for the introduction. And yes, a little bit of a clean freak at times.
It's not a bad thing.
It's never a bad thing.
Look, I'm sorry about that time. I left that cup out on the kitchen.
No.
I don't get angry very often, Pete, but yeah,
You do.
when I do,
I haven't done
run
it
for
since.
cover.
I haven't done it since. So, Sarah, tell us about your role, what you do here at Mearns & Gill.
Okay, so, well, I was going to say, what is a typical day here, Pete, as probably other guests on the show. So I am account manager by title. I also head up the public relations division. So day to day, I liaise with clients. In terms of the public relations side, I share news about businesses and basically get our message out to the public.
Yeah, okay. And what do you love about what you do?
I think if I didn't do this job, I actually don't know what I would do. I can talk for Scotland. So
That's what makes you such a good guest on this podcast.
Yeah.
So I think that it's always been on the cards that I would be in a communications role. I love that I get to meet different people every day. It's so varied. And also the sectors I work across are so diverse. It can be anything from energy to third sector to education to travel, tourism. You name it, we do it and we support it. So variety is fantastic. And I feel like I'm powered by people. So having that sort of social interaction element for me in my day-to-day job is so important because that's what makes me tick. So yeah, I feel like I'm in the perfect role here.
Yeah, it sounds like it. What got you interested in PR? What got you into it?
I think everybody has quite a glamorized idea of what public relations is. I think they think it's like Gossip Girl led and like agencies in New York. And originally I worked in fashion, so it did have an element of that. So yeah, I guess it started like that. Not so much of a call for fashion PR in Aberdeen.
No.
But yeah, I just love the communication side, being with people, and yeah, it just fits me perfect.
So what about your background beyond Mearns & Gill?
So not everyone will know this, Pete. Well, unless I've spoken to them, which is probably everyone.
Right.
So I actually, my degree's in fashion design and manufacture. So I wanted to be a fashion designer originally, way back when. I won't say how many years ago. So obviously the communications role, I thought, if I can't do fashion, if I can't, design, start up a clothing line, which is pretty difficult to get into, then I want to talk about it. I want to be around it. So when I finished university, I was studied down in Galashiels, and they have really good links with London agencies, businesses in London. So I actually got a work experience down in a communications agency in London.
That's cool.
Fashion-based.
That already sounds cool.
Yeah.
So perfect. So yeah, I worked down in London for 3 years, and I worked in fashion PR and beauty PR. So yeah. So there are some stories around
I
that.
bet there's a lot of stories, and I'm hoping we can unpack these as we get through this episode.
Yeah.
I hope so too.
I guess as well, have there been any big PR campaigns that have inspired you throughout your career?
Yeah, so one that springs to mind and probably sticks with me and always will is the Nike campaign, obviously the famous sports brand. So they ran a campaign back in 2017 called Breaking 2.
Okay.
Right.
So they had 3 world famous marathon runners who they put to the test, and they basically wanted to test human endurance and try and break the sub 2 hour marathon, which people thought was unachievable.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it actually was at that point. So an amazing campaign. Didn't do what it set out to do, but it definitely rewrote the history records. And then following that, the runner went on to then break it in 2019. So it was obviously the precursor for everything that came. But the campaign in itself, the way it was set up and formulated, everything alluded to speed, pace. The race course that they held the race on was the Monza circuit in Italy, which is a Formula One track. Right. Obviously, speed comes to mind. The date they had it on was the 63rd anniversary of the Roger Bannister sub 4 mile. So the date they held it on, the location they held it at, it was just so perfectly formed as a campaign. So well thought out. Hugely well thought out. But always with this, obviously it was to also sell product, because who doesn't want to buy the trainers that are on the world's fastest male's feet?
Absolutely.
Product sales shot up, but it was just this massive global campaign that kind of changed the face of running. And I'm a runner. I use that really loosely.
Just wondering how far into the podcast we would get without you bringing up your running.
And yours, Pete, and yours.
You are a runner. How many marathons, Sarah?
I've done 10 to date.
10 times marathoner in the podcast room. Incredible.
Very slow. Snail's pace, but got there.
Pace doesn't matter.
Jeez.
Finish lines, not finish times. That's my motto.
Anything else that have inspired you? That's a massive global campaign. But what about projects that you might have worked on in the past? There's got to be a few wild stories, especially from your London days.
Yeah, so lots that I probably can't share.
Okay.
But I will share this one. One of my clients was one of the top 10 charities in the world at an agency I used to work at. And we used to always have to think out the box. What can we do to make the charity stand out? And they had something called the gift catalogue, which they used to take out at Christmas. So instead of buying your regular presents for friends and family, why not buy a goat? A mosquito net as something to support.
A goat?
Yeah.
Oh, right. I see. You're almost like adopting them in other countries, that kind of thing.
Correct.
Is that
right? Yes. To enable support for families in, say, Africa, so they can grow their own crops, have animals, produce, etc.
How do you put a PR spin on something like that?
So why not get an influencer involved, Pete?
Right.
So at that time, this is going back quite a few years, we had we'll call her a socialite. We thought she shops all the time, probably shops in Harrods, all the London fancy stores, Bond Street, Regent Street. Why not pop her in a shopping destination with a real life goat?
Wow. I mean, this sounds like this is going to go wild. How did it go?
It was interesting. So I think it's probably the first time in the history of the world that a goat received a parking ticket.
And what was the connection like between the goat and the influencer? Did they get on?
It was actually really good, and they did.
Wow. That's extreme.
But also, during that photo shoot time, we obviously sparked interest. So we had a camera crew that came down. We ended up on a reality TV programme because of what we were doing. They just happened to be in the area, so they captured it too.
I can imagine the influencer probably loved that.
Yeah.
She did, yeah. But she was such good fun, and it was all taken in really light-hearted spirit. So yeah, she was walking down past Harrods with Harrods bags plus a goat on a lead. Not something you see every day.
No.
I mean, that's certainly a story to remember, isn't it?
And it actually really increased sales from the catalogue that we were promoting, because people were just so fascinated by it. And like I say, it got global coverage. You can still buy those photographs to this day online. So yeah, some of the top photographic agencies still sell those photos because it's unique. It's so different.
And I guess that's the whole thing. It's unique. It stands out, and people took notice.
Exactly. Yeah, PR stunts definitely have a place. But yeah, I love the weird and the wonderful. So getting to think out the box and think up these types of things it's fun. It makes it fun.
Love it.
So I guess would the Aberdeen equivalent be a sheep? Could we do that on Union Street?
We could try.
We need to make that happen for one of our clients.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about Donny the sheep? That's Aberdeen's mascot, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Let's get him on
make
board.
It happen.
We will.
I guess let's take a bit of a step back. I mean, let's get to understanding PR. Like, what is that?
Yeah, how would you explain that to someone?
Yeah, so if you drill it down into its most simplistic description. I guess it's managing how others see and feel about a person, brand, or company. And it's really about getting people talking about your business, brand, or yourself as an individual and just contributing to the conversation. And it's all to do with public image and perception too.
That's interesting because you said it's about managing how someone feels about a brand, whereas we spoke to Cam a few episodes back about brand, and brand was all about how you emotionally perceive a brand or a product. So it's quite interesting. It's managing how someone sees a brand.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Pete. So I guess if you want to look at the logistics and process side, it's about managing and issuing information, but in a controlled way. So it gives you control.
Right.
Publicity, you can't control.
Yeah.
You know, newspapers and journalists, they'll find their own stories. They'll give it their own angle. With controlled public relations, good relationships with journalists, you know, we can have that frank, honest and open discussions with them, but also control it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So there's that age-old saying that all publicity is good publicity. As a PR person, do you totally disagree with that?
I don't want to say I'm on the fence for this, Pete, but yeah, I guess this is where we start to move into the crisis comms realm.
Yeah, because you're not in control.
Yeah. Bad publicity can completely decimate a brand, organisation, individual. So again, that whole crisis communications piece, when something goes wrong, that is the time when that has to be controlled.
Right. Crisis comms, very important. I want to come back to that a little bit later on because I reckon that you've probably got a lot to say about that.
Yeah, so I guess what makes good PR? Like what is likely to get picked up?
So that is something that I like to discuss with clients in the infancy of our relationship. Some organisations, individuals, brands think that they have a news story.
Yeah.
And sometimes it isn't. So it's a delicate balance of teasing out what is the news story and then making it news relevant.
I suppose that's you doing right by the client, though. If a client has something that they think's newsworthy, you're protecting their time by saying, actually, I'm not going to spend time writing a press release for that because it's unlikely to get published.
Yeah.
So you, I imagine, would then steer them towards a route that's more likely to kind of get coverage for them. So I guess in your day-to-day work with clients, what are the kind of typical things that would get picked up and published?
So I think, nowadays we want positive news, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so much going on in the world. It's really nice to share good things. So, that can be anything from, contract wins for a business to supporting something in the local community. It might be a CSR story. They might have won an award. That might boost team morale within the business. There are so many elements that maybe clients sometimes don't see as a story. And I guess that's where I come in, looking at that strategically. But it's always looking at the objectives of the PR story. What do we want the outcome to be? Are we building up brand reputation? Are we rebuilding a brand reputation? Has something happened in the past where, you maybe haven't come out looking wonderful in the press? How can we turn that around? Can we do something good? And then share that news story and then rebuild the brand. So there are lots of different ways to approach PR, and it depends on the outcomes. It always depends on what the objectives that the client lays out as well.
Okay, so there's a lot of strategy behind it, and we'll come back to that in a bit as well, because I'm interested to hear more about that.
So following on from that, is there any advice on why a client might want to engage in PR?
I think just reiterating some of what I've said before. So if something difficult has happened around your organisation, it could be anything from something's gone wrong with a product that you sell, or something's happened internally with the staff and the team. There could have been strike action. There are so many scenarios which require a PR response. So I guess it's difficult to kind of give an overarching understanding or description around that.
But reputation management's part of it, isn't it?
A huge part of it. And I think good PR is about building brand awareness and bringing positive stories, I guess, in its essence. That's what we want to do, is talk positively about brand, individual, organisation, and just share the really good stuff.
Okay, this is all really interesting, by the way. Right, let's go behind the scenes of PR campaigns, Sarah. Can you talk us through, I guess, your own approach to PR, tactics and strategy and things like that?
Oh, without giving away all our insights.
Yeah, let's not give away all the secrets.
Not everything. But I guess the initial approach when I first engage with a client, I really like to get under the skin of the business.
Okay.
I like to know about the team, what makes it tick. I always like to see their business plan, whether it's 3 years, 5 years, and that might sound quite intrusive, but it really dictates what I will give in terms of a strategy, an approach and a timeline to tie in with their overall business objectives. So I think people often think PR is this wishy-washy thing. Oh, that's a nice to have, but it's really an essential part of marketing a business and a really, really strong tool that can push business success. One example, the organisation will remain nameless. Really positive story, but I just don't want to share who it is. So, energy sector client, and they've been wanting to get into this business to tender for work, and they just couldn't do it. They tried everything to open doors through face-to-face communications, networking, calls, cold calling, everything.
Right.
We just happened to touch on this article that the client they were tendering for just found really fascinating. It answered the questions to the tender without having to answer the questions to the tender. So from them reading an article in the newspaper, the client actually won a £2 million contract.
Wow.
That's
good.
That's really thinking outside the box, isn't it?
Just to caveat, that doesn't happen all the time. So I don't want people to think if they get PR support, they're going to win £2 million client. But it was just, we had targeted the audience. We knew they read that publication. And yeah, they read it at the right time. So that was a really positive turnout for that client.
Was it also a little bit of luck that the right person read that article?
I guess it was a little bit of luck, Pete, but yeah, I like to think it's strategic planning.
I know it's strategic, but it's fantastic how that all came together. So going back to that bit you said about the, I guess the whole marketing plan and how your PR strategy should align with that. So this might be a client that, we do marketing for a lot of clients, but it might not be. So I imagine you've got to get right in there and work with their marketing teams to get to know what their long-term marketing goals are so that you align with all that.
Yeah, we always say we're an extension of the business. I really don't like being seen as like a third-party external supplier. I talk to all my clients, every week, and some people have like larger retainers than others, but it's given them a significant amount of time and effort to understand their business, get to know the team. It's just so important to get under the skin. Hugely important. There have been times in my role where I've been seconded in-house. That also helps. It doesn't happen all the time, but it kind of gets your foothold. You can see what's going on in daily operations, so it really helps from understanding news and picking up stories that you might hear in the canteen during a meeting. It's the things that you maybe, if you're not seconded in-house, you don't always hear those things, but that's why I try to have regular communication and always be in touch so that I can find these things out.
So Aimee, be careful what you say in the canteen in front of Sarah.
Oh goodness,
Indeed.
I'm scared now.
All noted.
We said we'd come back to crisis management again, and it's obviously a very important topic to discuss. Tell us more about that.
So I think, Aimee, when you get to the crisis communications management side of things, that's when things are pretty serious, as the title would suggest. Yeah. We're communicating in what is essentially a crisis. So I use a really planned, process-driven approach. I actually have 4 stages that I will advise the client on. First, I think you should always have the pre-crisis preparatory stage. That is so important. So be prepared before it even happens. Yeah. It might never happen, but be prepared. So that's number 1. And in terms of the preparatory stages, I will provide step-by-step instructions to a client. I like to have an easier to say, organogram of the organisation to know who do we contact. Something could happen. If it's an energy sector client, not saying it always is, but that's obviously a risk-managed area of businesses. Say something happens at 2:00 in the morning on a rig or an asset. We need an organogram of who do we contact? Who's the best person? Contact details of everyone, template statements, and also I really encourage the client to be media trained. Okay. When we get to this point, crisis hits, we need someone who is well versed with the media, understands the approach, and is comfortable. It might get to the stage where something's televised, you know. I've been involved in so many different crisis comm scenarios over the years, from people who are unfortunately lose their lives, so death in service, death on a platform, helicopter crashes. I've been involved in so many different things.
Yeah.
The process still stays the same, I guess. So going back to that. So stage 1, pre-crisis prep stage, super important. So stage 2, I like to assess, activate and alert at this stage. So I think the most important part of crisis comms also, Pete, is keep the heat.
Keep the heat, okay.
You really have to be calm during what could be, it could be a developing situation. So something started, it doesn't mean it's there it ends. It could be the start of something that's going to evolve over days, weeks, months. I guess it was crisis communication slightly, but I used to look after 6 airports. And that was when the Icelandic volcano erupted.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
I bet that was a busy time for you.
Oh, my goodness. And it was long and it was drawn out. It was fascinating, but we had to be on the receiving end of, obviously, statements to press. So Sky News wanted to know, are the airports open? Is it safe to fly? And that Icelandic volcanic eruption, it really caused disruption across so many different
globe. Yeah,
it was everywhere. So back to stage 2. So assessing the situation, activating any plan that you have, which should have been developed in the pre-crisis prep stage, and then alerting the team. So when I say alert, I guess I'm talking about internal alerts.
Yeah.
So anyone who needs to know internally about what's about to become public knowledge needs to know. And then we have to alert the public if it's necessary to do so.
Okay.
People sometimes like to say no comment. I just completely advise people against that.
Yeah.
I just would never say no comment.
I guess it's the fear of saying the wrong thing. And that's where obviously here at Mearns & Gill, we offer media training, and we'll have clients who come in, and senior members of staff will be trained in the morning, and then in the afternoon they're put through their paces in front of camera by a journalist, which is a great way of building confidence. But I suppose it is that fear of saying the wrong thing.
It is. It absolutely is. And again, we can control the narrative, control the statement. So, if someone says no comment, a brand, organisation, individual, journalists and the press will go to other people to get this information. And it might be incorrect. One, you can't control it. Why would you not go out with a statement? And I'm not saying you have to go out and say everything. If you give the facts, it almost gives you this hold time to then reassess what we're going to go out and what is the final message.
Okay.
So that's stage 2. Stage 3 is the response stage. So I guess that's like an action and update stage. So once the messaging or statement is put out there, you're obviously going to be inundated with inquiries.
Yeah.
Again, dependent on the nature of the crisis. Is it global? Is it localized? Who's involved? You have to then respond directly to the journalist inquiries, which is hugely important. You've got statements ready, responses ready, and that you keep a note of everything. I think that's hugely important.
Don't tie yourself in knots.
Absolutely not. And I guess that takes us on to stage 4, so post-crisis stage. Again, really important. So we evaluate and assess, how did we respond? Is there something we didn't do that we should have done? And then keeping this list of contacts, understanding who we responded to, how did we respond, what can we do better in future. So the evaluation stage is really, really important. It just allows us to prep and better ourselves for the next time. You always hope there's never a next time, but it doesn't mean because something's happened, it won't happen again.
Yeah.
Some really useful points there, Sarah, and I feel we're going to get a lot of takeaways for the end of this podcast, and we'll probably come back and just kind of recap on what some of these are. Let's move on to why PR matters. Why does it matter? Really good question, Pete. So why does it matter? I think, again, it comes back to controlling the narrative, but we can also, coming out of a crisis comms managed situation, we want to probably rebuild brand, rebuild confidence, depending on the crisis comms situation. It might not have been a direct result of anything that the client has done, but they've been involved in it somehow. But so we can rebuild brand and build brand awareness, positivity,
positive news, business reputation. There are just so many elements about why PR should be used and is a super successful tool.
And how can PR be used alongside other services that we offer here?
Good question, Aimee. So I guess PR is part of that interlinked service across all divisions. So say we have developed and designed an amazing new website for a client. How do we tell people about that? How do we get news out that this new website exists? How do we drive people? And press is absolutely one of those marketing touch points. So I guess it's this marketing cycle which brings in everything, and obviously we're a fully integrated agency providing all of those services. So PR is one of those essential touch points that does cross across digital events, and we can support the client to, future market, whatever it is they're pushing.
You helped me out on a campaign. So the first podcast I produced for a client was Bradley Boyd for Life. And we just launched it organically. You wrote a press release. It got picked up and he saw a spike in his listening figures.
Good to know, Pete. Good to know what I'm doing in my day job actually works.
Exactly.
It does.
And I think Bradley came with such an interesting story. And there's obviously the human element to that, which is something that press love. Like, Bradley made good out of a negative space that he was in and, has since created a successful business. So why would it not be a news story?
Yeah.
And I thought it was a great article and I loved working with Bradley on that too. It was really great to see.
Right, let's move on to the next segment of the podcast. And that segment is Case Study Corner. Right. Are you okay there? Are you okay there?
I'm fine. Wow.
It's a surprise.
This is Case Study Corner. We're going to need to ask you to move into the corner.
Shugle.
I'm
your
moving.
way in a little bit more. Actually.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Perfect. Right. You're in the corner. It's time for Case Study Corner. It's the segment of the podcast where we bring out a project and we unpack it and you tell us all the good, all the bad, hopefully no bad, and how it all went. So, what would you like to bring into Case Study Corner?
Hope that reverb is off of my mic now, Pete. Okay, so one which I truly loved. I mean, anyone who knows me, I love charitable work. So third sector for me, if I can be involved in a third sector project that gives back, supports others, and is part of my day job, like that is the dream for me. So I was really lucky to be involved in the Clan Light the North Trail.
Right.
Which we all will know and love.
And anyone in Aberdeen will recognise that because the clan trails are kind of famous in this city, aren't they?
They are, and they've actually just launched a new one. So we're going to see the book trail very shortly.
Yes.
So that'll be hitting the streets in 2025. So I had the pleasure of working directly with the team across the Clan Lighthouse Trail.
Right.
So that is just a PR dream because you've got everything from the artists producing the artwork, you've got the whole process of the sculptures being designed. There's just so many elements that are newsworthy. And then, of course, it hits the streets, the beaches, people are visiting. There's just so many PR elements that lend itself just to being a wonderful campaign.
Yeah.
And I think the making the difference part as well, because obviously ultimately those sculptures are auctioned off and it raises money for Clan, which we all know and love and know that it's a vital service in Aberdeen.
Okay. So from that campaign, have you got any anecdotes or stories or any facts on kind of how successful it was? I mean, everyone knows of this. The awareness around the city is huge as soon as it launches. We get the maps, you go out, you do the trail, you get your little selfie with all of them.
Yeah, I guess how do you gauge the success? And it was, these campaigns specifically or historically have an app, so we know how many people are visiting the sculptures. There's engagement across the social channels, and there was just a constant stream of just lovely PR stories. So the local press were really engaged with it.
Great.
Really supportive. So in the end, it actually contributed to the overall auction sales. I would definitely say that had a direct impact. And it raised a significant 6-figure sum for the charity.
That's fantastic.
Wonderful.
What a great project to work on.
Yeah, I loved it.
And it just shows you the variety of sectors and clients that we have here at Mearns & Gill.
I think I said in the office last week, you can be doing anything from literally writing about paint drying. Yeah. That has happened in the past.
Yeah.
So there can be technical things, there can be wonderful human-led stories, people facing their own personal challenges. So yeah, it's so diverse, and that's what I love about the job.
Thank you for bringing that into Case Study Corner. So Sarah, let's take a step back from the serious side of PR. I want to know, have you ever had any embarrassing or awkward PR moments?
Again, there are several, Pete. Which
Great.
we cannot speak of, but
Tell
we will
us.
speak of this one. So I was privileged enough to be part of a very famous art fair, which takes place in London, and they have celebrity guests. So
Right.
I was one of the meeters and greeters on the front door, which was wonderful. So yeah, really varied celebrities who attended. And as part of the event, they would have an auction. So one of the auction prizes was this beautiful Italian scooter.
Oh, wow.
It was
Like
just wonderful.
a
Vintage,
Vespa.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think it was like a Velocifero Italjet or something
wow.
like that. I'm just going to throw that name in. So yeah, that was up for auction. So it was stood on a stand. So I was meeting and greeting.
You didn't knock it over, did you?
I didn't. But one of our celebrity guests, I'm not sure if I should name him or not.
Go on. Name him.
He's Irish. He does a lot for charity. He's a sir. Can you get?
Did he ever hold a huge musical
yes.
event?
Yes. So I mean, that's probably enough for everybody to know.
So what did Geldof do?
That I did not name and shame him. That was Pete.
That was Pete.
So he came in. I think he had a couple of shandies or maybe a pint of Guinness or two.
You're right.
I'm not sure what his preferred tipple is. But anyway, he came in and I think he thought that the scooter was somewhere he should hang his jacket.
Oh.
So he threw his coat over this beautiful, very expensive piece that was about to be auctioned. And I said, "Excuse me, sir, you can't do that." And then he turned to me and he said, "Ooh, you're a fiery Celt." So
You know
I
what?
think he
It's
knew
true
he'd
though.
met his match.
I've been on the receiving end of this. That time with a cup.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah. There you go. Don't
And that was
mess.
less fiery than the receival that
Wow.
Bob had.
Wow.
So,
There we go.
but yeah, that was good fun. So yeah, part of my job in London was actually celebrity product placement.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was quite cool. It feels like a bit of a dream, actually. So yeah, I used to get paid to dress celebrities, basically. So it was like playing dress up every day. So it was good fun. One of the highlights was Mel B, so Scary Spice Girls.
Nice.
She came in and we had the biggest hoot. She was just, you can imagine, northern, just like loud and just loving life. She was wonderful. I've had people who are not so wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not going to
I'm
name
just
this
amazed
person.
at the life you've led.
Oh.
Mingling
You
with all...
wouldn't think I was this old.
Who
would
says
you?
PR isn't glamorous? Mingling with all these celebrities, whining and dining.
Yeah, once upon a time, yeah. It's that they are long days and they are, yeah. The good comes with the bad, but yeah, fantastic time.
Well, look, this has all been truly fascinating.
Oh, good.
Sarah, it's almost time to wrap up this episode of the podcast. There's been so much interesting stuff that we've covered in this podcast, Sarah. It's been really, really mind-blowing, really interesting. Aimee, do you want to do a recap on some of those takeaways?
Yep, of course. So include a goat. I think
Always
that is
include
a
a
key
goat.
takeaway for
Why
today. Get that in the PR campaign. It's going to work. On a more serious note, obviously, we've covered a lot on crisis management. So prepare for this before it's even happens. You have a good plan in place. We've discussed why you want to do PR, if it's new product launches or rebrand, charity type things. It's really, really important to be part of your marketing mix. The power of positive PR. Yeah, so important. And also you can control the narrative with your PR as well. So that's one of the main aims. And you're being seen to be part of the conversation. So you're getting your name, your brand out there to be part of that conversation.
Sounds good.
So many good things we've covered today. Don't forget, if you like what you've been listening to, please do hit the follow button on this podcast. And if you'd like to hear more about anything we've covered today, just drop us a line. Aimee, where can we be found?
Yep, so you can find us on Instagram at Mearns Gill or check us out on Facebook, LinkedIn or online. Just search for Mearns and Gill.
You can also now send us a text from your podcast platform. You'll see a button that says text the podcast. So do that and get in touch with us. Sarah, thank you so much for being a guest and talking PR.
It has been a pleasure, guys. Thank you so much.
And we'll see you next time.
See you soon.